Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Milen. I'm a personal stylist, and today we're talking about the Ingenue essence. Yes, I know my hair is very frizzy today and I went a little 80s. Some call it kind of a coquette innocence essence. All applies here. Generally speaking, just because your facial features match this essence does not mean you resonate or feel like you have this Ingenue essence. And that's okay. That's totally normal. On the flip side, you could have almost no features from this essence, but your personality when people talk to you, the way you move, the way that you interact with others, the way you approach life could match this essence perfectly. And in that case, I still consider you Ingenue, and you can still match your clothing to your personality, your overall vibe, not just your facial features. So it depends on what side of that you're on. All is valid. So this will be just a little intro, nothing crazy. I'll get into more in-depth videos later. So as a generalist, you may have or feel that you have this essence if personality-wise, you're seen as kind of innocent, cute. People would describe you as cute versus, like sexy. Even though cute is sexy, but in a different way. There's just more of an innocence. People maybe don't feel like they'll offend you if they talk about anything crass or swear around you even. And you could be someone that swears a lot, but still have this essence. It's just the way you're perceived. But they can be so much more than that. And I really want to stress this because sometimes any essence is kind of put into a box. I think they actually have more of this whimsy, this curiosity about life that is quite endearing, and it is something or an energy that you want to be around because they look at things the way children look at things, where it's just new, it's curiosity, it's exciting, and they almost try to make everything in their lives feel this way. So that could be through, the way they dress, yes, but it could also be the types of experiences they seek out in their day-to-day, the hobbies that they seek out. If they like to make things look pretty and happy, that's also a very Ingenue essence. And when I say whimsy, I don't mean the ethereal, whimsical. It's more of that wonder, that creativity, that's a bit more of that innocence, looking almost at the world through rose-colored glasses, but in a good way. It's almost like we should all aspire to be this because it's so beautiful. They just see the world as beautiful. To me, I like to look at the Ingenue essence as embracing that inner child and, putting on those dresses as a little girl, or having tea parties, or feeling like you can play in imagination a little bit and not feel like you have to grow up. But it's not the same as the gamine playfulness. That's a cheeky playfulness. They're doing it as an intentional, I want to be different playfulness. This comes in as holding on to that inner child and remembering all the great things about being young and naive and just enjoying life and not getting bogged down by maybe the darker side of life. Physical traits, again, reminder, you don't have to have these to have this essence necessarily, but typically they have a smaller frame or are on either a gamine side. They can even be romantics or soft body type because of that rounded edgeness to their personalities. They might have big eyes, doll-like features, rounded, chubbier faces, kind of like, all these contrasting elements on their face and maybe their body, as if a child who hasn't grown into their features yet, which is very cute. So if you feel like this matches your vibe, or you want to dress more in this type of essence because you resonate with it, here's what men and women can wear. I just want to remind you that we typically have more than one essence. You may be dominant in an essence, but generally speaking, no one is fully 100% one essence. So these are examples of almost 100% Ingenue essence, but there's always going to be some other essences mixed into these outfits, and you yourself are that way too. So don't be too hard on yourself over this, and keep that in the back of your mind. Number 1, garden tea party. I named it this because I just think this is what I imagine every Ingenue, not every, but how this type of personality is living in their head. It's a garden, it's, you know, running around with the fairies, it's sitting down for tea with your imaginary friends or your real friends, but obviously your real friends as an adult. But it's surrounded by color and animals and, you know, insects like butterflies, and there's just that element of nature put in, the way that children have that connection to nature, and they feel almost free, and they can run around and they can explore and be curious. So I like to think of them as almost free-spirited. It's not ethereal, it's definitely more that imagination that children have, and that whimsy connection to the world and seeing it as beautiful as it is. And that's that garden party. So for this, you would wear things with floral details, maybe little animals on it like deer or anything, really. Anything cute and little animal-like, perfect. You can even mimic, you know, the types of things you'll see at a garden party or a picnic, like gingham, little gingham pattern, and I would put it in a lighter color, not as high contrast. That will honor just kind of that innocence and that younger vibe. Just think Alice in Wonderland tea party sort of vibe. Number 2 is vintage knots. I mentioned this in the gamine video, but in this instance, it's not a way to be playful. It's almost a way to represent a time, let's put it that way, where the children used to dress like miniature adults. And we still kind of do this, so it's not to say that we don't. But that vintage nod, like the Victorian time, a lot of the times the kids were wearing like suspenders, and they are teeny tiny, and it's adorable. So you almost think of it in that way, and there's a bit of an element of innocence when we think of certain time periods where we didn't talk about certain things, and it was a little bit like rose-colored glasses. And not to put a negative spin on that, there's nothing wrong with it, but this type of essence is going to love that type of thing, that it seemed like a simpler time, even if it wasn't. So the aesthetic of that can feel almost matching their vibe. And when they wear it, they look less like they're wearing a costume. It'll feel a bit more natural, especially things when there was lots of lace and frilly elements, and a bit more structure in their outfits without it feeling too structured. There's almost a nice balance between their younger innocence and a tiny bit of that structure in the fabrics, just ever so slightly. So that's like an undershirt where worn on the outside. So this doesn't have to be so extreme, like vintage look. It can be, you know, rounded large collars. It could be suspenders for guys, maybe high-waisted pants for guys. It could be berets. You know, there's a lot to kind of play around with it, not so literal. That brings me into number 3, schoolgirl, schoolboy vibes. This to me is pretty obvious. I mean, the school atmosphere is all about learning and innocence and discovering, and that's kind of what an Ingenue likes to be always, like a forever student type of vibe. I find that academic style has roots of this essence in it. It has other essences, of course, but there's one thread in there that kind of hints towards that wonder, that curiosity, and uniforms were meant to be kind of cute. They weren't meant to be super sexy, although people try to make it. So you would stick towards the cutesy side of it. And it was a bit more of that preppy look to it. So it kind of veers into classic, but in this instance, it's really about hamming up that innocence and that curiosity, that exploration type of idea that an ingenue might have. So easy ways to add that in would be bows, Mary Jane shoes, little kind of pleated skirts. You can do button-up shirts with large collars. Men can wear kind of that sweater wrapped preppy style polos. Anything that kind of feels like it's a uniform. It all just feels sweet, the way you might view the world. Number 4, rounded and delicate details. Because ingenue personalities and looks tend to look kind of delicate and innocent, if your clothes feel equally delicate and dainty, then those two things just mimic each other really well, and it can give a clue as to, you know, the kind of person we're going to speak to when we see you out in the street, or if we're going to interact with you. It signals that innocence and that softness, that lightness that you may bring to a conversation. In other words, it's super non-threatening. So they will look more approachable if they have small detailed lace, like small polka dots, little flowers, rounded edges to their outfits, to their clothing, softer materials. Nothing is too large and in charge, because that will start to veer into more of a gamine side where things are kind of exaggerated. So it really is kind of in a moderate to smaller sense, because as soon as you go too large, it becomes dramatic or gamine, like I said, and that can signify a totally different vibe. So if you keep it in that small, dainty, light, approachable sense, and that's still within that frame of ingenue, and you're gonna come across as such easier. And then when people see you walking, talking, your lighter movements maybe even match the lightness in the details in your clothing. That brings me to number 5, which is flowiness. Kind of the same idea. However, I like to think of it like some kids that are constantly in motion and always not in the clouds, you know that expression like your head's in the clouds. It's a little bit of that, and that flowiness to be a little bit flowy or easygoing, going with the flow. Sometimes, you know, kids are just excited to get into whatever's happening, right? They get excited about Christmas, they get excited about holidays, and it's sort of that same flowiness, that flowiness of life, the flowiness of nature. They just feel more like that's how they move, and they are wondrous. They'll run around wanting to just soak in life a little bit. And it's important to note here that the flow you see in a natural essence or an ethereal essence can have a similar idea, but it's coming from a different place. And the more you dress within this type of flow, you're gonna give that kind of vibe versus an ethereal or natural, which I will be making a video comparing and seeing mixes as well. So you've got this movement for exploration within a very delicate frame or delicate person. So you can look for chiffon, tulle, lace, anything that drapes a little bit, but not in a romantic, sexy way, in a I can move around way. So like mini ruffles, you know, just little puffs maybe on the shoulders. Just a little bit of that rounded, but with some flow added in. Number 6 is young and fresh makeup. This one again feels kind of obvious, but it's that rosiness, that minimal makeup look, but not in a too much of a natural sense, because it is about playing up the features that are large or to appear larger. So you'll wear more of like an eyeliner in a rounded shape to make your eyes larger, or lots of mascara to make your eyes bigger. And everything is that coquette fashion where it's innocence reflected in the makeup. So rosy cheeks like you're blushing, or you have been running outside, playing, or out in the cold. So those trends, those makeup trends like the strawberry makeup trend or the cold girl trend, like Bridgerton vibes, or the, you know, Roy Gilmore type of vibe, everyone in those instances are innocent, are naive, and they are fresh. They don't look like they're wearing a lot of makeup, even if sometimes they are. It's kind of that clean girl makeup look, but it's not too much on a natural side. There is some visible makeup there. It's just in a very rosy and innocent, happier vibe. And lastly, lighter colors. So this goes back to the idea that you may view as an ingenue that you're kind of looking on the brighter side of life, not the darker sides, if this is the prominent essence, because of course when you mix ingenue with other essences, it's not always going to be this. But lighter colors signifies freshness, youthfulness. You think that baby girl, baby boy type of colors like the pastel blue and the pastel pink, it's because it's non-threatening, it's easy, it's happy, it's flowy, it's everything that the ingenue represents, and it doesn't feel aggressive, it doesn't feel sensual, and it doesn't feel too playful. It's just in that nice little cutesy vibe that feels light and pretty. All right, and that is it for the ingenue essence. I tried to say the word more in English because if I said it too French, I think it would confuse people, but that is this essence. But if you have any questions about this essence, drop them down below. Or if this is one of your essences, one of your main essences, I'd love to know. And if you're having any trouble identifying your essence or your body type or your coloring, I have all types of packages on my website and all linked down below. You can also just email me and ask about my packages. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a cute and lovely day.